Hi everyone, this is chapter 10 of Max Lucado's You'll Get Through This. Now, about those family scandals and scoundrels. Family wounds are slow to heal. I hope your childhood was a happy time when your parents kept everyone fed, safe, and chuckling. I hope your dad came home every day, your mom tucked you in bed every night, and your siblings were your best friends. I hope you find this chapter on family pain irrelevant, but if not, you need to know you aren't alone. The most famous family tree in the Bible suffered from a serious case of blight. Adam accused Eve, Cain killed his little brother, Abraham lied about Sarah, Rebecca favored Jacob cheated on Esau and then raised a gang of hoodlums. The book of Genesis is a relative disaster. Joseph didn't deserve to be abandoned by his brothers. True, he wasn't the easiest guy to live with. He boasted about his dreams and tattled on his siblings. He deserved some of the blame for the family friction, but he certainly didn't deserve to be dumped into a pit and sold to merchants for pocket change. The perpetrators were his 10 older brothers. The 11 sons shared the same dad, dinner table, and playground. His brothers were supposed to look out for him. Joseph's next of kin were out of line, and his father, Jacob, was out of touch. With all due respect, the patriarch could have used a course on marriage and family life. Mistake number one, he married a woman he didn't love so he could marry one he did. Mistake number two, the two wives were sisters. Might as well toss a lit match into a fireworks stand. The first sister bore him sons, the second sister bore him none. So to expand his clan, he slept with an assortment of handmaidens and concubines until he had a covey of kids. Rachel, his favorite wife, finally gave birth to Joseph, who became his favorite son. She later died, giving birth to a second son, Benjamin, leaving Jacob with a contentious household and a broken heart. Jacob coped by checking out. When Joseph bragged to his brothers about their bowing to him, Jacob stayed silent. When Jacob got wind that his sons had taken the sheep to graze near Ch10, the spot of prior conflict, did he spring into action to correct them? No, he sent Joseph to get a report. He sent a son to do a father's job. Obstinate sons, oblivious dad, the brothers needed a father, the father needed a wake up call, and Joseph needed a protector. But he wasn't protected, he was neglected, and he landed in a distant, dark place. Initially, Joseph chose not to face his past. By the time he saw his brothers again, Joseph had been prime minister for nearly a decade. He wore a chain of gold eagles on his neck. He bore the king's seal on his hand. The blood bed-abled coat of colors had been replaced with the royal robe of the king. The kid from Canaan had come a long way. Joseph could travel anywhere he wanted, yet he chose not to return to Canaan. Assemble an army and settle the score with his brothers, he had the resources. Send for his father, or at least send a message. He'd had perhaps 8 years to set the record straight. He knew where to find his family, but he chose not to contact them. He kept family secrets a secret. Untouched and untreated, Joseph was content to leave his past in the past. But God was not. Restoration matters to God. The healing of the heart involves the healing of the past. So God shook things up. All countries come to Joseph in Egypt to buy grain because the famine was severe in all lands. Genesis 41 verse 57. And in the long line of folks appealing for an Egyptian handout, look what the cat dragged in. So Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. Genesis 42 verse 3. Joseph heard them before he saw them. He was fielding a question from a servant when he detected the Hebrew chatter, not just the language of his heart, but the dialect of his home. The prince motioned for the servant to stop speaking. He turned and looked. There they stood. The brothers were balder, grayer, rough-skinned. They were pale and gaunt with hunger. Sweaty robes clung to their shins, and road dust chalked their cheeks. These Hebrews stuck out in sophisticated Egypt like hillbillies at Times Square. When their time came to ask Joseph for grain, they didn't recognize him. His beard was shaved, his robe was royal, and the language he spoke was Egyptian. Black makeup extended from the sides of his eyes. He wore a black wig that sat on his head like a helmet. It never occurred to them that they were standing before their baby brother. Thinking the prince couldn't understand Hebrew, the brothers spoke to him with their eyes and gestures. They pointed at the stalks of grain and then at their mouths. They motioned to the brother who carried the money, and he stumbled forward and spilled the coins on the table. When Joseph saw the silver, his lips curled and his stomach turned. He had named his son God May Forget, but the money made him remember. The last time he saw coins in the hands of Jacob's older boys, they were laughing and he was whimpering. That day at the pit, he searched these faces for a friend, but he found none. And now they dared bring silver to him. Joseph called for a Hebrew speaking servant to translate. Then Joseph scowled at his brothers. He acted as a stranger to them and spoke gruffly to them. Verse 7. I'm imagining the tone of a night watchman aroused from his midnight nap. Who are ya? Where do you come from? The brothers fell face first in the dirt, which brought to Joseph's mind a childhood dream. Ah, well, we're from up the road in Canaan. Maybe you've heard of it? Joseph glared at them. Nah, I don't believe you. Guards, put these spies under arrest. They're here to infiltrate our country. The 10 brothers spoke at once. You've got it all wrong, your high, holy, and esteemed honor. We're salt of the earth. We belong to the same family. That's Simeon over there. That's Judah. Well, there are 12 of us in all. At least there used to be. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no longer living. Joseph gulped at the words. This was the first report on his family had heard in 20 years. Jacob was alive, Benjamin was alive, and they thought he was dead. Tell you what, he snapped. I'll let one of you go back and get your brother and bring him here. The rest of you I'll throw in jail. With that, Joseph had their hands bound, a knot of his head, and they were marched off to jail. Perhaps the same jail where he had spent at least 2 years of his life. What a curious series of events. The gruff voice, harsh treatment, the jail sentence, the abrupt dismissal. We've seen this sequence before with Joseph and his brothers, only the roles were reversed. On the first occasion, they conspired against him. This time, he conspired against them. They spoke angrily. He turned the tables. They threw him in the hole and ignored his cries for help. Now it was his turn to give them the cold shoulder. What was going on? I think he was trying to get his bearings. This was the toughest challenge of his life. The famine, by comparison, was easy. Mrs. Potiphar, he could resist. Pharaoh's assignments, he could manage. But this mixture of hurt and hate that surged when he saw his flesh and blood, Joseph didn't know what to do. Maybe you don't either. Your family failed you. Your early years were hard ones. The people who should have cared for you didn't. But like Joseph, you made the best of it. You've made a life for yourself, even started your own family. You're happy to leave Canaan in the rearview mirror, but God isn't. He gives us more than we request by going deeper than we ask. He wants not only your whole heart, He wants your heart whole. Why? Hurt people hurt people. Think about it. Why do you fly off the handle? Why do you avoid conflict? Why do you seek to please everyone? Might your tendencies have something to do with unhealed hurt in your heart? God wants to help you for your sake, and for the sake of your posterity. Suppose Joseph had refused his brothers, summarily dismissed them, washed his hands of the whole mess. God's plan for the nation of Israel depended upon the compassion of Joseph. A lot was at stake here. There is a lot at stake with you too. Some years ago, a dear friend of mine was called to the funeral home to identify the body of his father, who had been shot in the middle of the night by his ex-wife. The shotgun blast was just one in a long line of angry outbursts and violent family moments. My friend remembers standing near the body and resolving, it stops with me, and it has. Make the same resolve. Yes, your family history had some sad chapters, but your history doesn't have to be your future. The generational garbage can stop here and now. You don't have to give your kids what your ancestors gave you. Talk to God about the scandals and scoundrels. Invite Him to relieve the betrayal with you. Bring it out in the open. Joseph staged the hurt for a reason. Revealing leads to healing. Don't just pray, Lord, help me forgive my father. Unearth the details. God, Daddy never wanted to be a part of my life. He didn't even come to my birthday parties. I hated him for that. Or every day I came home from school to find Mom drunk, lying on the couch. I had to make dinner, take care of baby brother, do homework on my own. It's not right, God. Difficult for certain, but let God do His work. The process may take a long time, it may take a lifetime. Family pain is the deepest pain because it was inflicted so early and because it involves people who should have been trustworthy. You were too young to process the mistreatment. You didn't know how to defend yourself. Besides, the perpetrators of your pain were so large. Your dad, mom, uncle, big brother, they towered over you, usually in size, always in rank. When they judged you falsely, you believed them. All this time you've been operating on faulty data. You're stupid, slow, dumb like your daddy, fat like your mama. Decades later, these voices of defeat still echo in your subconscious, but they don't have to. Let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Romans 12, verse 2. Let Him replace childish thinking with mature truth. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 11. You are not who you said they were. You are God's child, His creation, destined for heaven. You are a part of His family. Let Him set you on the path to reconciliation. Joseph did. The process would prove to be long and difficult. It occupies 4 chapters of the Bible and at least a year on the calendar. But Joseph took the first step. A cautious, hesitant one, but a step nonetheless. After 3 days, Joseph released his brothers from jail. He played the tough guy again. Go on, scoot back to, what was it, Kansas? Colorado? No, Canaan. Go on back, but I want to see this kid brother you talk about. I'll keep one of you as a guarantee. They agreed and then, right in front of Joseph, rehashed the day they dry glutched him. They said to one another, we are truly guilty concerning our brother, for we saw the anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us, and we would not hear. Therefore, this distress has come upon us. Genesis 42, verse 21. Again, they did not know that the prince understood. He understood Hebrew, but he did. And when he heard the words, Joseph turned away so they couldn't see his eyes filled with tears. He didn't speak for a few moments, lest the lump in his throat turn into sobs on becoming of a tough official. He stepped into the shadows and wept. He did this 7 more times. He didn't cry when he was prompted by Potiphar or crowned by Pharaoh, but he blubbered like a baby when he learned that his brothers hadn't forgotten him after all. When he sent them back to Canaan, he loaded their saddle bags with grain, a moment of grace. With that small act, healing started. If God healed that family, who's to say He won't heal yours?